Continuing with our new series where we go through all of the Disney films from Snow White to the present, we have just seen Pinocchio. One of my favorites. I absolutely love this movie, and watching it again, that love and admiration was reinforced.
I like the movie just fine. I think it's good, but I don't love the movie. It's got some problems, and coming straight off of Snow White, I think there's like some big differences between the two in terms of animation and even storytelling. That I think this one is not anywhere near as good as Snow White.
I think I gotta disagree with you on that one. I think this is a superior film in terms of animation and story. The animation, especially, it really does feel like one-upsmanship. Like Disney said, "Oh, you thought that was something. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet." It felt like they really challenged themselves to do even better and even more, and to make the workload even harder and more difficult, because they're doing like even more complicated things with the animation here. They're doing so much with the lighting and with elemental stuff and with the backgrounds and the environments, and the character designs are so much more colorful, and they seem to be deliberately more complicated just to like wow even more, just to captivate you.
Yeah, there's only two things I think it really improves on with the animation, and one is the quality and level of detail in the backgrounds and the environments, and then the other one is the character animation. So, like the character animation is quite good, especially like when you watch the puppetry scenes, like having to animate how puppets actually move and work on strings and stuff like that. It's very well done.
There's definitely some rotoscoping involved, particularly the first sequence where Geppetto manipulates the puppet little wooden head. I'm pretty sure that's all rotoscoped, but it looks incredible.
Yeah, the big standout as far as animation goes is the whole entire end sequence with Monstro.
Yeah, the climax to this thing is a visual treat.
Yeah, I think the biggest triumph in this movie, as far as like showing us something we haven't seen before, is the way they animate water and waves and
Yes.
splashes.
Yes, there is a lot of water in this.
How just kind of like rugged Monstro the whale is. But I think the problem that I have with it is, like, while it is much more detailed, I also feel like it's somewhat more static. Like, the environments are kind of just like a still image, and then characters are animated on top of them, and there's not like too much interaction with the environments. And I disagree with the lighting. I think the lighting is much worse. That was like, to me, the standout thing about the first one was the way they did shadows and light sources. And here it just looks flatter to me. Like the shadow work is not as pronounced. It feels like they were like, okay, that was really, really difficult and time consuming to do in the first one, so let's kind of pull back on that stuff and like focus on other things.
I actually disagree with you too regarding the backgrounds. I think they make them like far more interactive in this one, particularly Geppetto's shop with all the clocks. There's so many moving pieces in that thing.
A lot of that's like done in close up. So I'm talking about like just general like scenes, the way they play out. I don't know. To me, it was kind of like just a very detailed image with characters kind of placed on top of them. Even when like the camera moves, it feels like it's moving across a flat background with the characters animated to move across it. Where like Snow White, to me, it felt like the characters are actually placed in the world. I don't know. I very, very like high level of detail compared to Snow White, but I think the animation quality and the lighting and the how dynamic the scenes are, I like Snow White better. Like, but the puppetry scenes and the Monstro stuff, that's like the best stuff in this movie.
Damn, got a hater here. Well, you all know the plot. Geppetto makes a wooden puppet, calls it Pinocchio, and then wishes upon a star for the puppet to be a real boy. So the Blue Fairy comes and grants Pinocchio life and says that if you prove yourself to be brave and honest, then you will become a real boy in time. You be a good boy, follow the rules, resist temptation, Be responsible, and you will be rewarded. The movie then follows Pinocchio as he fails over and over again,
Yeah,
basically.
he does not follow any kind of rules. He breaks every rule there is.
He gives in to temptation and follows an evil fox and cat who lead him down a dark path into the world of performance art, where he finds himself the prisoner of an impresario named Stromboli, who's going to exploit him and then cut him into firewood. And then he finds himself on Pleasure Island, an isle full of temptation and full of debauchery and corruption, where the kids are smoking and drinking and playing pool and just being all around awful, awful people. Then, once he escapes Pleasure Island, Geppetto gets swallowed by a whale and he has to save him. It all sounds nonsensical when you say it out loud, but here's the thing. I've read the book, and that book is a nightmare. That anyone was able to make such a straightforward, functional adaptation out of that work is impressive.
That's like my other big problem with this movie is kind of the narrative.
Yeah, the plot's insane.
It's a cautionary tale, like you said, about being good and following the rules and kind of resisting temptation and following the straight and narrow. But it's so random, and each sequence is kind of so detached from the previous one, and that can work. But here it's just like, oh, we're here doing this to have a big set piece, and then we're done. And then let's move on to the next one.
As insane as the plot is, I do think they do a good job tying it into the task that Pinocchio is given, which is, resisting temptation, and he fails that. He goes into theater and follows Honest John and Pleasure Island, and then proving himself brave. That's where the climax comes in. He has to do a very daring and perilous task, going into the river to find his father, who's swallowed by a whale, and I feel like it works on that level, but it's undeniably insane and out of its mind.
Yeah,
and the book is even crazier.
Yeah, I like Jiminy Cricket is kind of like the constant throughout. He's a funny character.
And that's the next thing I wanted to get into, the characters. I really like them in here. I think we've talked about how in Snow White the characters are very one-dimensional and basic, and we were generally okay with that because I feel like they had enough personality and charm about them. And Jiminy Cricket is all that and more. Like, he's full of personality. He's very fiery. He's quippy. He's funny.
I think I think we're going to disagree with it here, but to me, like, he's kind of the only one who is. Like, I think the other ones, they have interesting and fun, like, kind of character designs and quirks, but I don't think any of them are really interesting characters. And part of that's because you really only see them for, like, 5 minutes in each sequence that they're in, and then they disappear for the rest of the movie.
I'd probably say that about, like, maybe Geppetto. He's not a terribly interesting character.
Geppetto's not a great character.
I think Pinocchio functions well. I generally like him, and Geppetto's his little cat and his goldfish, Cleo and Figaro. I like them. I thought they were cute.
They are. The problem I have with Pinocchio, though, is I feel like the story's about him resisting temptation, but I feel like his character is far too, like, innocent and gullible, and it feels like the story just kind of happens to him rather than him making choices.
Yeah, I can't understand that. Yeah, that's something that the Guillermo del Toro film improves upon. I generally think the Guillermo del Toro film is a superior adaptation overall, but that's another review for another time. But and then we get the villain, Honest John. I love Honest John. I love that guy's voice. He's voiced by a guy named Walter Catlett. His voice reminds me of Mark Hamill as the Joker. I really like that actor. He does a fantastic job. He's very sleazy. You really buy him as this con man. He's got such he's a sly fox, so he's got a sly voice. His little cat buddy, Gideon, is actually voiced by Mel Blanc.
That makes sense.
Evidently, that character was I think he originally had a speaking part, and then I guess somewhere down the line in production, they realized, nope, let's not do that. So the only vocalization that Mel Blanc does in the finished film is a hiccup.
Okay.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then Stromboli is very well voice acted, and the animation on him, he's one of the most animated characters in the movie. He's always in motion. It's very fluid too. And especially interesting watching his he talks really fast, and so the animation, the lip movement has to keep up with it, and it's like pretty impressive.
I agree. Like I said, the best stuff to me in the movie was like the character animation and the like the actual like detail in the environments.
Every time I watch this, I marvel at the animation. I just think to myself, God, this must have taken forever, especially all the scenes with the water, every little drop of foam,
Yeah.
all of the ripples.
Well, it's odd that you think the animation's so much better than Snow White, because to me, like watching it the whole time, I was like, man, were they working on a tighter budget? Because it feels like they're saving everything for the ending, because like the rest of the movie to me was just so much less dynamic and more flat compared to Snow White. Like even like the musical numbers and the scenes where, well, a lot of the comedic gags too, and like some of the slapstick doesn't really work for me in Pinocchio. I felt like it was much more clever and placed better in Snow White. Like things like the turtle crawling up the stairs, and or just I don't know, just Snow White. I felt like they were like they were out to prove themselves, and now that they've done that, it's like, okay, well, here's another movie.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, I felt like with this one, they were out to prove that they could do so much more, because I really do feel like this is a bigger, better movie. It's such a technical achievement, I think, even more so than the previous film.
I don't know, man. Like, there is so much going on in Snow White. There's so many characters on screen at one time, like all the forest animals doing different things, like all the dwarves in the house cleaning the house, and then the animals and the dwarves in the house doing stuff.
Maybe we'll have to watch these movies side by side on two televisions to see which one of us is right.
And to me, the lighting and shadow work was kind of shocking. I was blown away by the quality of it in Snow White, and then to me, in here they were like, we really don't need to go that hard on the lighting and the intricate shadow detail, so we're going to tone that down and pump all the energy into the actual detail of the environments.
Damn. Another thing I've always loved and admired about this film is that it does not give a shit about traumatizing kids. There's like 3 major villains in this movie, and none of them face any consequences for their actions, no repercussions whatsoever. They get away with it. I always liked that, because that's frankly how it is in reality most of the time. They just get away with it scot-free.
Yeah. It's funny to me that the Pinocchio character, and maybe this is more because of the books or some of the other adaptations, but it's odd to me that he's become known as the character like whose nose gets long when he tells a lie, because it really only happens once in the movie for like 30 seconds, and then it's never part of the story again.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think there is more nose growing in the Guillermo del Toro one. It's been a little while since I've watched that, though. And then I can't even remember how many times it happens in the live action one, which we're going to watch and review very soon.
Yeah, the Holy Smokio edition.
Yeah. Oh, another thing about the animation regarding the climax that I thought was really incredible is Monstro the whale is like visually beautiful, and every character in the movie is colored the way you would expect them to, with the basic flat colors. But Monstro, they went out of their way to like put like gradients and 3-dimensional coloring on it. Every frame of animation is like that.
It almost looks like they like it suddenly became an anime. Just like the way it's drawn, the way it's colored, the way like that grittiness and that kind of realistic feeling. It's like Disney classic animation like colliding with like Japanese animation.
I believe anime was heavily inspired by Disney.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The music.
Oh yeah, I really like the songs in this movie. I find myself frequently in my day-to-day life singing I've Got No Strings. I love that melody. I sing it frequently, and my favorite song in the movie is probably Honest John's. I think it's called Hi Diddly Dee, An Actor's Life for me. A high silk hat and a silver cane, a watch of gold with a diamond chain. I love that song.
Yeah, I think the songs are just fine. I think they're kind of an afterthought.
When You Wish Upon a Star is certainly indelible. It's been Disney's theme song for decades.
That's like the best one. I've Got No Strings is a pretty good song. The rest of them, you know, they didn't really do anything for me. I feel like they didn't treat them like actual. This one doesn't really feel like a musical in the way Snow White or some of the other ones does.
Yeah, I can understand that.
This one seems like it's more focused on the characters and the narrative, but
Which is another thing I do like more about this one is that there is more momentum. It's constant momentum, actually, because Snow White, while I thought that one was terrific, there did come a point in the second half where it starts to lose steam and just become a series of musical segments. This one is always moving the plot forward.
yeah, I mean, by way of the character going from place to place, but I like I said, I don't love the way they kind of stitch the scenes together. It feels like just kind of random to me. Also, it's not really a criticism, but it's just funny to me that it's never called attention to the fact that there's like this talking fox guy.
Oh, yeah.
Around town.
Yeah, I guess that's in the book, too. In the book, they're just called the Fox and the Cat. In the movie, they're given names, Honest John and Gideon. Out of nowhere, there's just a fox wearing clothes walking down the street talking with his cat buddy.
That reminds me, but like a good example of kind of what I'm talking about with like the environments looking good, but like the animation kind of being slapped on top of it was there's like a wide shot of the city that kind of pans across the streets, and there's like all these like very low quality children and people walking and playing and doing stuff across it, and it's like, wow, there's such a difference in quality here. And it doesn't really feel like they're interacting with the environment. It feels like they made a big painting and then they moved a camera across it and then animated on top of it, but didn't really give the characters to do anything like in the world, like, you know, going in and out of houses, or, you know, lights flickering on and off, or, you know, other stuff that I feel like we got a lot more of in Snow White.
How'd you feel about the sequences on Pleasure Island? That's the stuff in Nightmares.
It's dark, and you definitely don't see stuff like that in Disney today. It is pretty funny to watch a bunch of children in a movie smoke and drink.
It's the donkey scenes that are the real nightmare inducers. When, like, if you were like a mama's boy, like I was when I was a kid, I probably would have found that horrific. Hearing those children cry for their mamas, and then their screams of terror turning into just these awful brays, and then they get thrown into cages and sold off to the salt mines.
Yeah, there is no resolution to that.
Those kids met a horrible ending.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that, and
yeah, they get the point across. Don't do bad shit, kids, or you turn into a damn donkey and get sold into slavery.
Be a good boy. But also, like, to me, that was just a really weird way to kind of express it. Like, this is the ultimate outcome. If you don't be a good boy, you'll turn into a jackass.
Well, you're making a jackass out of yourself. It's like a double entendre, I guess. And it's literal. It becomes literal.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, that was just kind of, like, cheap. It's like, okay, they turn into donkeys, sure. Why not? Whatever gets us to Monstro. Which also is just the most random thing. And the Blue Fairy is, like...
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Blue Fairy. Something I thought was cool about her was every, like, human character, of which there's only, like, 3, I think. Every human character has, like, very exaggerated features. They look cartoonish. The Blue Fairy is the only one who has realistic proportions. She's clearly rotoscoped, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool, because that kind of made her otherworldly in this universe. Everyone else is cartoonish, but she is realistically proportioned. It's a great design, too.
She is the thing that holds the plot together and moves it along. And that's kind of another problem with the narrative I have is the characters don't really do anything to progress the plot. It's the Blue Fairy comes in and progresses it or saves the day. Like, especially to get to the climax, like with the way we get to Pleasure Island to Monstro is like, well, I don't know what we're gonna do,
And then a bird just drops a letter into his
and
hands.
then a letter just falls out of the sky and says, Geppetto's been swallowed by a whale.
Yeah, that's probably a consequence of them having to adapt from the book, because I can't remember how they figure it out in the book, but I'm sure it was some crazy bullshit.
Yeah.
The book is weird.
Yeah, like if there was a way they could have maybe followed Geppetto's trail and found out that he went out to sea or something, and then discover that he gets swallowed by a whale, but here it's just nope. Literally falls out of the sky and boom, we're there.
I will say one thing that Snow White did have over this one was I mentioned in our previous review that when Snow White dies and the dwarves are all huddled around her casket, that actually did get me. Pinocchio dying in this movie did not get me, sadly.
No, well, it also doesn't linger the way it does in Snow White. Like here, you see him in the puddle, which is also a byproduct of the internet, has become such a meme now.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, like Pinocchio face down in the puddle. That's like a gigantic meme on the internet.
Which I love that image. He's face down in the puddle.
Yeah.
Which means if he's unconscious, he's drowning in that.
Yeah, but they don't let it last very long. You never really buy that it's, that's the consequence of, everything that's happened. It's just, again, Blue Fairy fixes everything.
Yeah, well, he died saving his father. He proved himself brave. He got 1 out of 3.
Yeah, so we've already seen the live action remake back when it released, but we haven't watched it again since then. What are you kind of expecting out of this second viewing of that live action one?
Well, the first time I saw it, I remember coming away from it thinking it was okay.
It's just fine.
And then we saw the Guillermo del Toro one in the theater, and then we had a very different and more negative opinion of it.
Yeah, like, oh, so this is what we can do with this property.
So I think going into it again, I'm going to think it's a big piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm expecting to not like this one, really at all.
As I was watching this...
doesn't help that it's almost 2 hours.
Yes, God almighty. As I was watching this animated one, I started remembering things that the remake does and does worse, but we're going to get into that when we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get its fair shake for its second viewing, but
yeah.
I'm not expecting anything.
Oh, so I guess I'll leave you with this fun fact. The guy who voices Geppetto was a Nazi sympathizer who pissed off the animation crew with his constant praising of Hitler.
Oh, God.
So they got back at him because he did basically the motion capture, I guess you could say, the reference, where he was like, they filmed him on a rig where he was pretending to fish so they could animate to that sequence, and they rocked the rig and made it nauseating and awful for him to be on. So they got their revenge on that Nazi bastard.
Good. Should have fired him. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. So aside from the fact that it stars a neo-Nazi, I really love Pinocchio. I like this movie a lot. It's one of my favorite of the classic Disney films.
I thought it was just okay. It's good, I guess, but like I said, I was really kind of blown away by Snow White. So watching this, to me, was kind of a big letdown by comparison.
So I guess what you're saying is...
You made a big mistake. This Pinocchio, he's a big disappointment.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Drew Carey in this instance.
Hard disagree for me. I like this movie. I recommend it.
I would recommend it too, but I don't have like a glowing endorsement of it.
So I guess we'll get into our number ratings now, but funny enough, we forgot to do it for Snow White. So what was your rating of Snow White?
9 out of 10.
Okay, I would agree, and I would probably give the same to this.
No, I would give this like a 6 out of 10, unfortunately.
Damn.
Maybe a 7 if I'm on a good day, but to me it really is just about that Monstro scene and the few scenes like where we get to watch the animators do the puppetry and stuff like that. But the rest of this, I'm just like, okay, like this is fine. But I don't love the story. I don't love the characters, and I feel like the animation's worse somehow.
Don't be a hater, kids. Watch Pinocchio.